There is a silent killer inside millions of people. It stops dreams before they start. It destroys confidence before it's ever built. And the worst part, we invited it in. It's called self-doubt. You weren't born with it. You learned it. And today, you're going to learn how to destroy it. There's something most people never realize. Self-doubt isn't part of their DNA. Nobody comes into this world questioning their worth, their intelligence, or their ability to succeed. A newborn doesn't hesitate to cry, to demand, to reach, to try again and again. A toddler falls 1,000 times, but they never stop trying to walk because they aren't good enough. When you were young, you didn't question whether you deserved love, attention, or possibility. You didn't doubt yourself. You learned to, somewhere along the way, life started teaching you a different story. Maybe it was a parent who said you weren't smart enough, a teacher who pointed out every flaw but never celebrated a win, a friend who laughed at your ideas, a heartbreak that convinced you that you weren't enough. Those moments didn't just hurt, they trained your brain to question itself. And the more it happened, the stronger that habit became. We call it self-doubt, but really it's repetition. Someone else planted the seed, but you kept watering it. The truth is that voice in your head that says you can't is not your voice. It's a collection of experiences, opinions, and fears from the past that you started carrying as if they were facts. And if something was learned, it can be unlearned. Every belief you have about yourself, every limitation, every insecurity, every reason you think you can't succeed was shaped by your environment, not by your potential. Think about this. If your entire life you were told you were powerful, capable, brilliant, what would you believe today? If every mistake was treated as progress instead of failure, how different would your confidence be? Some people had that advantage, and they walked through life with certainty, not because they were better, but because no one taught them to doubt. If they grew up in your shoes, with your experiences, with your scars, they might be the ones struggling today. So understand this fully. It was never a lack of ability. It was conditioning, and conditioning can be changed. Self-doubt is a habit of hesitation, a habit of replaying the past, a habit of assuming the worst. Just like any habit, the more you repeat it, the stronger it gets. But here's the good news. Habits can be broken, not with hope, not with wishing. They break with awareness and action. The moment you recognize that doubt is not who you are, just something you've been practicing, everything changes, because you can practice something new. When you understand that, you stop asking, what's wrong with me? And start asking, where did I learn this? You stop treating doubt like a personality trait and start treating it like a bad program running in the background. And the second you stop identifying with it, you take back your power. You are not the voice that tells you to stay small. You are the one who hears it. And if you can hear it, you can silence it. Your brain is always listening. Every time you say, I'm not good enough, I can't do this, what if I fail? Your mind accepts it as instruction. You speak limitation and your brain obeys, because the mind does not question the commands you repeat, it follows them. The moment you change the story, you change the direction of your life. That's how transformation happens, not from motivation alone, but from installing new beliefs. When someone finally achieves a breakthrough, starts the business, leaves the toxic relationship, changes their body, changes their life, people say they found confidence, but confidence isn't found, it's built. It's built from realizing that the old story was a lie. It's built from taking action even when you don't feel ready. It's built from replacing the habit of doubt with the habit of certainty. And certainty doesn't come from knowing the outcome. It comes from knowing you will show up no matter what. In this moment, you get to make a decision. You can keep accepting the beliefs someone else handed you, or you can take them off like an old coat that doesn't fit anymore. You can keep living in the story of I can't, or you can step into I will. You've doubted yourself long enough. You've lived small long enough. You've apologized for who you are long enough. The world has taken a shot at shaping you. Now it's your turn. The only question left is simple. Will you continue practicing the habit that limits you, or will you start practicing the one that frees you? Your mind is the most powerful weapon you will ever own, and most people use it against themselves. They speak defeat, they speak fear, they speak insecurity, and then they wonder why their life feels stuck. Your brain responds to the language you use. Every word you repeat becomes a command. And sooner or later, your body, your actions, and your choices begin to obey it. If you tell yourself you're not enough, you'll stop trying. If you say you can't win, you won't even step onto the field. And if you consistently tell yourself you are the problem, you will sabotage your own solutions. People think self-doubt is an emotion. It's not. It's a conversation. It's the story you tell yourself when life gets uncomfortable. It's the voice that whispers, what if you fail? What if they judge you? What if you're not good enough? But the truth is that voice doesn't speak reality. It speaks fear. And the longer you entertain it, the more believable it becomes. Your mind doesn't know the difference between a truth and a lie. It only knows what you repeat. If you say, I can't do this, your brain won't argue. It will say, okay, let's not try. If you say, I'm not smart enough, your brain won't challenge you. It will start collecting evidence to prove it. But the opposite is also true. If you tell yourself you are capable, your brain becomes creative. If you speak possibilities, your brain begins to search for solutions. When you declare certainty, your body responds with energy instead of fear. Words shape chemistry. Language shapes emotions. The story in your head becomes the story of your life. And most people are repeating a story that was written by failure, fear, and people who never believed in them. Think about it. Every time you doubt yourself, what are you actually saying? I don't believe I can handle what's next. But is that true? Look at your life. You've survived every hardship. You've recovered from every mistake. You've gotten back up every time you were knocked down. You've handled more than you ever thought you could. You have a history of strength, yet you speak like you're weak. That's the real problem. Your words don't match your reality. You say, I'm scared, but you've faced fear before. You say, I'm not ready, but you've started from zero more than once. You say, what if it doesn't work? But what about the times it did? Every doubt you repeat is an insult to everything you've already overcome. And deep down, you know it. You wouldn't be here if you weren't capable. You wouldn't have survived what you survived if you weren't strong. The problem isn't your ability. The problem is the story you're telling yourself. Your brain listens, your heart listens, your energy listens. If you speak weakness, you live weak. If you speak hesitation, you move slow. If you speak possibility, you rise. That's why some people with less talent still win. They speak confidence until confidence becomes real. They command their mind instead of letting their mind command them. You can't build a powerful life with powerless language. You must become intentional with your inner voice. You have to start catching yourself when you speak limitation and flipping it into possibility. Yes, fear will show up. Yes, doubt will show up. But you don't have to let them speak for your future. Instead of saying, I can't, start saying, I'll figure it out. Instead of saying, I'm not good enough, say, I'm getting better every day. Instead of saying, what if I fail? Ask, what if I succeed? These small changes shift everything because you stop programming your brain for defeat and start programming it for action. And here's something even deeper. Your mind believes the voice you listen to the most. For most people, that voice isn't other people. It's themselves. You wake up with you, you go to bed with you, you spend every moment of your life listening to the conversations inside your own head. If that voice is toxic, insecure, fearful, or hopeless, your life will reflect it. Not because you were incapable, but because you hypnotized yourself into believing weakness. But imagine what happens the moment you switch that voice. Imagine waking up and saying, I am done shrinking. I am done doubting. I am done treating myself like an enemy. Imagine replacing self-criticism with certainty, replacing fear with courage, replacing hesitation with action. You don't need everyone else to believe in you. You just need you. The day you become loyal to yourself is the day self-doubt starts to die. You were not designed to speak like a victim. You were built to speak like a creator. When you change your internal language, everything outside of you begins to shift. Opportunities look different. Challenges feel smaller. Goals seem possible. You stop hoping for confidence and start generating it from within, because confidence isn't something you wait for. It's something you speak, something you build, something you choose. Your words are building your future or destroying it. Every sentence is a brick. And right now, you get to decide what you're building. A prison of doubt or a foundation of strength. You don't need permission to change the story. You just need the courage to write a new one. So speak life into your dreams. Speak strength into your challenges. Speak belief into your future. Because your brain is listening, and it will follow whatever voice you choose to feed it. Self-doubt survives in silence. It survives in hesitation. It survives every time you stop yourself from taking action. The longer you wait, the louder it gets. But the moment you move, even a little, that voice starts to lose its power, because doubt is strong in your mind but weak in reality. Confidence is not built by thinking, hoping, or planning. Confidence is built through motion. Most people sit and wait for confidence to show up before they take action. They say, let me feel ready first. Let me get motivated. Let me feel sure. Let me get everything perfect before I start. But that's not how life works. Confidence doesn't come before action. It is the result of action. You don't become confident by thinking. You become confident by doing. When you take a step, even a shaky one, your brain learns something. I survived. I handled it. I can do more. That's how momentum is born. Think about the times in your life when you felt unstoppable. It wasn't because everything was perfect. It was because you were moving. Once you start, your brain shifts from fear to focus, from hesitation to execution. Energy comes from progress. The more momentum you build, the less space self-doubt has to survive. You weren't doubting yourself when you were taking action. You were busy building proof, because that's what confidence really is. Proof. When you take action, even small action, you collect evidence that you are capable. But when you hesitate, when you sit in your head, when you overthink, you collect evidence that you're afraid, and the brain always reinforces whatever you repeat. If you keep waiting, waiting becomes a habit. If you keep starting, action becomes a habit. People say, what if I make the wrong move? You will. Everyone does. But you learn more from one real step than from a lifetime of planning. Mistakes don't kill confidence. Inaction does. The moment you move, doubt begins to lose oxygen, because doubt can't fight results. Doubt can't defeat progress. Doubt only wins when you do nothing. Some of you have been thinking about a dream for years, thinking about starting that business, thinking about changing your body, thinking about leaving a toxic situation, thinking about starting a new chapter. And you wonder why you feel stuck. You're stuck because thinking doesn't create change. Motion does. You don't need a perfect plan. You need a decision. You need the courage to start where you are with what you have. Every person you admire, every success story you've heard, every champion, every leader, every creator, none of them started confident. They started scared, they started unprepared, they started without certainty, but they moved anyway. Because action is the cure. Action is the antidote. You cannot think your way into confidence. You must act your way into confidence. And here's the beautiful part. Once you take the first step, the second one becomes easier. Once you take the second, the third becomes natural. Before long, the same thing. That once terrified you becomes part of your identity. You stop saying, I don't know if I can. And you start saying, this is who I am now. Action rewires identity. The moment you collect proof of your capability, the story in your head begins to change. And understand this, confidence isn't loud. It's not a show. Confidence is quiet. It's the silent understanding that you can handle whatever comes next. It's the calm that comes from knowing you've been in the fire before and you didn't die. Every move you make builds a stronger version of you. You don't need to take massive steps. You just need to keep moving. Maybe right now you feel stuck. You feel unsure, you feel overwhelmed. Good. That means you're growing. Comfort never made anybody powerful. Comfort never built greatness. Every uncomfortable action you take is another nail in the coffin of self-doubt. Every step forward weakens the voice that says, you can't. Eventually, that voice gets so small it stops running your life. You want a different future. Start walking toward it. You want confidence. Earn it through repetition. You want momentum. Build it with motion. You don't have to sprint. You just have to stop standing still. Life rewards movement. The universe rewards commitment. Even small steps create big shifts because you're changing direction. You're breaking the pattern. The first workout turns into a habit. The first conversation leads to opportunity. The first attempt opens a door you didn't even know existed. But none of that happens if you stay in your head. You don't need to see the whole staircase. Just take the first step because momentum is powerful. When you're moving, fear has to chase you. When you're standing still, fear sits beside you. The quickest way to silence doubt is to drown it in action. You may not feel ready. You may not feel strong. You may not feel confident. But if you move, those feelings will follow. Not before, after. So take the step. Make the call. Start the thing you've been avoiding. The worst thing you can do is nothing. The best thing you can do is begin. Confidence is built through motion. Momentum kills doubt. Action changes everything. Confidence isn't magic. It's not a gift some people are born with and others are denied. It's repetition. It's training. It's building belief through proof. Every time you repeat an action, every time you show up when you don't feel like it, every time you overcome something you once thought was impossible, you're training your mind to trust you. You're teaching your brain. When I say I'm going to do something, I do it. That repetition becomes identity, and identity becomes power. Most people lose confidence not because they're incapable, but because they break promises to themselves. They say they'll start, they say they'll change, they say they'll try, and then they don't. Every broken commitment chips away at self-trust. Every time you choose avoidance, you quietly tell yourself, I don't follow through. But when you repeat discipline, even small discipline, you begin building inner strength that no one can take from you. Confidence is built from consistency, not intensity. You don't need one massive breakthrough. You need small progress repeated over and over until it becomes automatic. Think of the gym. The person who trains 3 times a week for a year will always beat the person who works out intensely for 1 month and quits. Momentum belongs to consistency. Growth belongs to repetition. And the same thing happens in your mind. If every day you wake up and tell yourself you're not enough, that becomes your belief. If every day you hesitate, doubt, overthink, that becomes your pattern. But if every day you choose effort, even a little, you build a new pattern, you build proof, you build belief, you build confidence. Most people want confidence first, then they'll take action. But that's backward. You must take action first, and confidence arrives through results. You weren't confident when you learned to drive. You weren't confident when you learned your job. You weren't confident when you faced your first challenge, but repetition made you comfortable. Through repetition, fear disappeared. Through repetition, uncertainty became skill. The same is true for every dream you have now. If your goal is to start a business, you don't become confident by thinking about starting one. You become confident by building something small, learning, failing, improving. If your goal is to change your body, confidence comes from showing up again and again until your mind trusts your commitment. If your goal is to change your life, confidence comes from repeated proof that you are capable of change. Confidence grows like a muscle. You train it by using it. You make it stronger through challenge. You make it real through effort. And the more you repeat action, the more natural confidence becomes. And here's the beautiful part. Once confidence becomes part of your identity, you stop negotiating with yourself. You stop asking, can I? And start saying, this is who I am now. Repetition creates identity. Identity creates certainty. Certainty creates results. And don't underestimate small wins. One choice can start a chain reaction. One disciplined morning, one honest conversation, one courageous decision. You are always one repetition away from shifting the direction of your life. People talk themselves out of growth because they think it needs to be dramatic. It doesn't. Consistency beats intensity every time. If you want to destroy self-doubt, you build evidence against it. You show your mind something different. You prove that you can do what you said you would do. And the more evidence you collect, the quieter doubt becomes. If your brain only remembers your failures, it will always fear the next step. But if your brain remembers your discipline, your effort, your resilience, your willingness to push forward, it will begin to believe in your strength. Every successful person you've heard of didn't get there with confidence. They got there with repetition. They practiced more than anyone else. They failed more than anyone else. They showed up when others quit. And eventually their mind learned that they were unstoppable. Not because they got lucky, not because they were special, because they kept going. You cannot demand confidence from yourself while living in inconsistency. You cannot ask your brain to trust you while you break every commitment you make. Confidence is earned. And once you earn it, no one can take it away. Not opinions, not rejection, not failure. Because confidence isn't the belief that you won't fall. It's the belief that you'll get back up. Repetition changes everything. The more you do, the more you believe. The more you believe, the more you do. It becomes a cycle of power instead of a cycle of hesitation. So if you're tired of doubting yourself, start building proof. Show up today. Show up tomorrow. Show up next week. Even when it's boring, even when it's hard, even when you don't feel like it. Because every day you repeat action, you sharpen identity. And your identity becomes stronger than your excuses. Repetition builds belief. Not once, not sometimes, every time. You can be doing everything, right? Working on your mind, pushing yourself forward, taking action, building momentum. But if you surround yourself with the wrong environment, doubt will eventually find its way back in. Human beings are influenced by energy. We absorb the beliefs, the emotions, the standards of the people and environments around us. If you spend your life next to people who complain, you start complaining. If you spend your time with people who fear, you start fearing. If you surround yourself with people who doubt themselves, you will start doubting yourself too. That's not weakness. That's human psychology. Your environment is shaping you even when you're not aware of it. The conversations you hear, the opinions you absorb, the expectations people place on you, they either push you forward or pull you backward. Some of you don't struggle because you lack potential. You struggle because you're surrounded by people who don't believe in theirs. You're trying to build confidence in a space that feeds insecurity. It's like trying to grow a seed in dry soil. It's not the seed that's broken. It's the environment. Look back at your life for a moment. Every time you leveled up, every time you evolved, every time you became stronger, you can trace it back to a shift in environment. Maybe you met someone who believed in you. Maybe you joined a new group. Maybe you left a toxic space. Maybe you started listening to new information. The environment changed and your identity changed with it. That's not coincidence. That's the power of proximity. You are the average of the voices you allow access to your mind. If the voices around you say, be careful, don't try, don't risk, don't hope, you will shrink. If the voices around you say, go for more, don't settle, you're capable, you're powerful, you will rise. People think mindset is an individual thing, but it's heavily influenced by the energy that surrounds it. You can have a strong mindset, but if you live in an environment that constantly feeds negativity, eventually it will get inside you. And this doesn't just mean people. Your environment includes what you watch, what you listen to, the music, the movies, the social media you consume. Most people spend hours absorbing negativity without even realizing it. Drama, gossip, fear-based news, comparison, judgment. You can't feed your brain poison and expect to think like a champion. You cannot live in a mental junkyard and expect clarity, certainty, and self-belief to grow. If you want to kill self-doubt, you must protect the space where your mind lives. You need to create an environment where belief is normal, where growth is encouraged, where effort is respected. Surround yourself with people who are striving, not settling. People who are building, not complaining. People who make you feel uncomfortable, not because they tear you down, but because they force you to level up. Sometimes the doubt you feel isn't even yours. It's borrowed. You weren't afraid of the dream. Someone else talked you out of it. You didn't think you weren't capable. Someone else convinced you to stay small. You weren't scared of change. Someone else projected their fear onto you. And if you let those voices stay in your life long enough, they become your own. You need to take back control of who gets a seat at your table. Some relationships are not supportive. They are suffocating. Some friendships are not loyal. They are limiting. And some people are not doubting you because you're weak, but because your strength reminds them of what they never pursued. That's why you must be very careful with who you allow near your dreams. When you start to grow, not everyone will clap. When you start to change, not everyone will cheer. Some people will be uncomfortable because they only know the old version of you. And if you try to stay in environments where you've outgrown the energy, you will feel like you're shrinking just to fit in. But you were not born to shrink. You were born to expand. Sometimes the most powerful act of confidence is distancing yourself from people who benefit from your doubt. You don't have to cut everyone out of your life. You don't have to burn every bridge. But you do need to protect your mind. You need to spend more time around people who challenge you, inspire you, and hold you to a higher standard, even if they are strangers. Even if you only access them through books, videos, or learning. Proximity to strength builds strength. Proximity to smallness breeds smallness. You want to know why some people rise faster? It's not always because they're smarter. It's not always because they're more talented. It's because they place themselves in rooms where growth is expected, where belief is normal, where success isn't a threat. It's motivation. If you truly want to kill the habit of self-doubt, you must take control of your environment. Make your world louder with inspiration than criticism. Fill your space with voices that lift you up instead of tearing you down. Surround yourself with reminders of who you are becoming, not who you used to be. Your environment is either watering your confidence or poisoning it. And when you change your environment, you change your life. There comes a moment in every person's life where they have to decide who they are going to be, not who they were taught to be, not who people assume they are, not the version shaped by fear, failure, or hesitation. A moment where you look at yourself and ask a simple but life-changing question: am I done living small? Because self-doubt doesn't just take your confidence, it steals your life. Every dream you hesitate on, every opportunity you walk away from, every chance you never take. Doubt buries your potential long before failure ever could. Failure hurts for a moment. Doubt hurts forever. Failure teaches you something. Doubt teaches you nothing. Failure moves you forward. Doubt keeps you frozen. So at some point, you must draw a line. You must create a new standard for yourself, a standard where you stop accepting your own excuses, a standard where you show up whether you feel ready or not, a standard where your actions are louder than your emotions, because emotions are temporary, but standards define you. When you raise your standard, you change your life. When you decide, I don't negotiate with my goals, I don't shrink myself for anyone. I don't quit on the hard days. Everything shifts. Not because the world suddenly becomes easier, but because you become stronger. Your standard becomes your identity, and your identity becomes unstoppable. There are people who live their whole life hoping things get better, hoping confidence appears, hoping success finds them. But hope without action is nothing but a wish, and wishing doesn't change your life. Only commitment does, only execution does, only standards do. You don't rise to your goals, you fall to your standards. If your standard is I try, only when I'm motivated. You'll quit the moment it gets hard. If your standard is I take action when I feel confident, you'll never start. If your standard is I care what people think, you'll live your entire life in chains. But if your standard becomes I move even when I'm scared, everything changes. If your standard becomes